Hi, I'm Audrey McIntyre with House of Good Hope. And since the Isaiah 62 fast at the end of May, I've been studying the book of Revelation and had been recording here in this YouTube channel some of my observations on it. And again, any of the videos, I always put a disclaimer on it. It's Audrey's interpretation. I don't say it's true. I just say this is what I'm seeing. And well, I got to Revelation 12 at the beginning of October, and I was puzzling over that chapter. I didn't know what it meant, and I was asking the Lord what it meant, and I just was not getting anything. I went back to some commentaries, and they confused me even more. So I was asking the Lord, what is this all about? And then October 7th happened, the horrible attack, the Hamas attack on Israel, all those kibbutzes and little villages in southwestern Israel. And all of a sudden, it just seemed like Revelation 12 was being acted out right before my very eyes. And over the next couple of weeks, uh, as the counterattacks were being planned and we were praying daily, I set up a daily prayer vigil through House of Good Hope for Israel. We were praying from 6 to 7 every day, Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday at 4 o'clock from 4 to 5, and taking communion every day. And just seeking the Lord, praying for Israel, praying for our friends and our neighbors, praying for our own country. And as we were praying, and especially this morning, as I was going back to Revelation 12 and reading it again, and last night it started when we were praying at our house of prayer. I started seeing things that I never saw before. And it was starting to really, like, pieces were flying around in my head and flying around us. But finally, it was starting to come together, and it was fitting together like a puzzle. And it just really, really interesting what God was showing me, what I believe that God was showing me through all of this. And so here I was chewing on and praying through Revelation 12, and I was not quite understanding it. And then October 7th happened. And suddenly this chapter came alive to me. Suddenly this chapter was being played out right before my very eyes. And I was beginning to understand what it was. I'm seeing Revelation happening right now, right here and right now. And I remember as I read this chapter, I confessed to the Lord that at that time, I did not understand. At the beginning of October, I did not understand. You know, a lot of people say that the book of Revelation is easy to understand. That's not for me. The Lord was also showing me a different way of studying it. The Lord was reminding me of things that I had learned over the years about the Hebraic way of thinking, how it looks through Hebrew eyes as opposed to the Greek way of thinking, which our whole Western society, Western civilization is based on. And also to come to the realization that the Lord works outside of time. Yes, he works within time, but he also works outside of time. So when you're reading the book of Revelation, you're reading it from heaven's perspective. You're reading what's happening in the world from heaven's perspective, which looks totally different than it looks down here. And also it's outside of time. It's not, the revelation is not 1, 2, 3. It doesn't happen in order. And that's how a lot of theologians that I've been reading their commentaries on, and it's like 1, 2, 3 is step 1, step 2, step 3. And that's not necessarily how the Lord operates, how he works. He reveals pictures to people, revelations, dreams and visions to people, but it may be that he will show the end from the beginning, from Genesis, and he did. But he also will show what's happening in the middle at different times. So I had to really come to the understanding as I was reading Revelation is that I have to look at it outside of time, that is not necessarily in synchronized order. And I just asked the Lord, I don't understand. At the beginning of October, I do not understand. Please show me what your interpretation of Revelation 12 is. I was reading other commentaries, like who is it that I have one that I've been following closely, and he also he also quotes a lot of other theologians. The name of that theologian whose commentary I've been following closely is Dr. Thomas L. Constable. And one thing I appreciated about him is that he also quoted other theologians, and he did comparison studies on the different verses and the different chapters. So it gave me a nice broad perspective of what's being taught, and not just one commentator's own theology is. I appreciated him for that. But all of that still, Revelation 12, everything I read in his commentary about that, it just still confused me until October 7th. And I did ask the Lord, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does all of this mean, Lord? And through this horrible attack on Israel, October 7th. And we, like I said, we at House of Good Hope, we're a house of prayer, we're a prayer ministry, and we prayed daily. There's times when we pray we're supposed to be praying in other topics, but my mind and my heart goes all the way back to Israel and constantly praying for Israel and this horrible attack. And also all the things that were happening as a result of that, all of these awful pro-Hamas demonstrations and rallies all around the world, not just in Israel, not just in Palestine, not in Iran or Iraq or in the Middle East, but here in my country, New York City, they had 4,000 people protesting and demonstrating pro-Hamas. I can understand pro-Palestine because I understand that these people they have been hurting, and they've been used as pawns between Israel and all of these Middle Eastern nations. These poor people are caught in the crossfire. But I don't understand pro-terrorist groups after all of the awful things that they did to those people. They invaded their homes while they were sleeping or getting ready for breakfast, and killing them and torturing them, not just killing them, but torturing them, and then burning their houses. It was just horrendous. And I just could not understand how anybody in their right mind would be pro-Hamas. And so I saw this darkness coming into the land. Not just the land, around the world, there's a heaviness and a darkness and a lie, and all kinds of lies are being promoted. And it just like, what is going on here? And as I prayed through this in our daily prayers and many times a day prayers, this chapter started coming into focus for me. The woman giving birth to her son, and the act of giving birth, of course, that's the act of giving birth to Israel. Israel, even though it's an ancient country filled, this land is an ancient country filled with people of ancient roots, and more people with ancient roots are flooding in to claim and to build a new country. And that actually is an ancient country. They're rebuilding an ancient country, even though it's still only a new country. And all of this is prophesied through the Bible. Something is lining up in the heavenlies, and I'm seeing it more and more. In Hebrew, they have a word for appointed times, and those appointed times are called the Moedim. I know all of the Shabbats, all of the biblical festivals, all of them are Moedim. But could October 7th be another Moedim? I know that was the day of Simchat Torah. That was a holy day. It was a day of rejoicing, the last day of the Feast of Pentecost, the last day of, not Pentecost, I'm sorry, Tabernacles, the Feast of Tabernacles, and people were rejoicing on the 8th day. But there was an appointed time on this day, October 7th. This was an appointed time. In the ancient Greek, the word is kairos. That there were two different types of times in the ancient Greek language. There was the chronos time, and then there was that appointed time, that significant time that was going to start. And Satan, that dragon, who of course, in Revelation 12 was identified as Satan, he knows his time is almost over. And so Satan is poised, that dragon is poised to eat the baby, to eat Israel as it is about to be born. Yes, I know that Israel is 75, 80 years old now, and the people have been flocking to the land over the last 100 years, but even that is a relatively young country, and they're still in process. They're still in process. It's still a young country, even though it's also an ancient country. The dragon is positioned to stop this birth from happening, even as it's taking place. And all this happened, as I was meditating on Revelation 12, I suddenly saw that this was happening all the way through the Bible at different moedim, at different appointed times. And the dragon was positioned, was poised to eat the baby before the baby had a chance to breathe and to live. That happened in Exodus. That happened when the children of Israel, first of all, with Moses, the children of Israel, here they were in bond slavery to Egypt. And at one time, the Egyptians had ordered all of the baby boys to be thrown into the Nile River to be killed because the Hebrew slaves were getting to be too populated, too large. And so, and I know that the dragon was attempting to kill the deliverer before that deliverer even had a chance to breathe and walk this earth. And we know that deliverer at that time was Moses. So the dragon was poised to eat the baby and destroy Israel as they were walking. Also, when they were walking out of Egypt, here Moses he fulfilled what he was commanded to do as the deliverer, and he led the millions of Jews. In fact, it was a mixed multitude, Jews and Gentiles, who were coming out of slavery. They were walking out of slavery and walking into freedom, towards the promised land. And the first thing that happened, the first attack that happened after Egypt, was by sending the Amalekites to attack and destroy Israel before he even had a chance to get to that promised land. That's Exodus 17. I know there were other countries that had attacked them as they were going forward, but the Amalekites, the Amalek, was the first group. That was significant that they were the first country to attack them. And here, the children of Israel, the Hebrews at that time, were just a motley crew. There were millions of slaves coming out of slavery. Did they know how to war? Did they know how to fight? They certainly had to learn fast. And they were vulnerable. And the Amalek knew that. The dragon, Satan, knew that they were vulnerable. And so that's why the enemy, the dragon, sent Amalek to take advantage of that time, of that vulnerability. And again, he commanded to eat the baby before it was even, just as it was being born. And Hamas, I heard this from an Orthodox Jew, and I don't know if this is true or not, but when he said this, all of a sudden things started coming into place, that the Hamas is a significant, they are spiritual descendants of the Amalekites, of Amalek. The spiritual descendants. So stop and think about that. Here it is, 4,000 years ago, before Israel even had a chance to get to the promised land, the dragon sent Amalek to go out and eat the baby before it was even born, just as it was being born. And then that was in Exodus. My reference was Exodus 17. That's where you can find that story about how Israel came against Amalek and they defeated them. And how they defeated them was because Moses held his hands up in prayer, and he had to have help, Aaron and Hur, but and that's how they won that war, was through prayer. And then in 1 Samuel 15, The Amalekites again tried to eat the baby. You know, they were sent by the dragon again to eat the baby. Israel, when the first king Saul was raised up, again, this is a time of vulnerability. They were transitioning out of the season of judges, and they were coming into having a king rule over them. And I suspect Saul was not exactly the strongest king. He was weak, he was compromising. And again, I believe that Amalek knew that, the dragon knew that. So he sent the Amalekites to come and attack them again. And Saul was raised up. And of course, we know that Saul compromised. He did not kill the king. He was commanded to kill every person, every animal, to completely cleanse the land of Amalek. And he did not do that. And because of that, he lost his dynasty. And then in the book of Esther, again, the dragon raised up the Amalekites. Again, they tried to eat the baby. Israel, when everybody, including Amalek, all of the people of the Middle East were carried off to Babylon and then off to Persia. And Haman, who was an Amalekite, he was very much a deceiver, a manipulator, and he manipulated his way to come into to be second in command. And when he became second in command, his first objective was to destroy every Jew on the face of this earth. Again, that was his assignment given to him by the dragon, to eat the baby. And again, the Jewish people were very vulnerable at that time. They were carried off into captivity. Now the Amalekites are again aligned with Persia and with Babylon, with Iran and Iraq. Again, they are commanded by the dragon to attempt to eat that baby, Israel. I see they always attack when Israel was the most vulnerable. We know that up to that point, there was a lot of civil unrest going on in Israel. There were a lot of arguing, and they could not appoint and maintain a government there. There was a lot of fighting against each other. And the Amalekites, the Hamas knew that. Iran knew that. The dragon knew that. So, and the whole thing about how Gaza was taken over. Here they were, our country, Great Britain, a lot of Western society were trying their best to establish a two-state countries with both with the Palestinians and with Israel, and Israel was forced to give over Gaza, and they left. They took all of their people out of there. And Gaza, if you look at their map, it's a beautiful region. It's not desolate. It was right on the Mediterranean Sea. They could have done a whole lot of things there. The Palestinians could have prospered there. And I know it's a tiny strip of land, but what they could have done with that land is they could have established a great economy, and really they were supposed to be ruled by themselves, and they had no, Israel had no rights to their government. But what did the first thing they do is they elect a terrorist group, Hamas, to be their government. And then of Hamas, ever since 2006 and 2007, they were, instead of using that land to prosper their people, what they did was to build a base camp for terrorism in that place, in attempts to destroy Israel. See, that Amalekite spirit, with that dragon, Satan, is whispering in their ear. The horrible dragon's chief goal is to completely destroy God's promise. But as we know, because we know what the end of the book says, it's not going to happen. So today, as I pray about this and meditate on Revelation 12, I see Revelation 12 happening. Today is Revelation 12. And soon there will be a Revelation 13, 14, and it's going to be more happening as we go on. And one of the things that, as I've been praying and seeing all of the uprising around the world, with Russia, going back to Russia, China, these communist countries who have been trying to take over the world for I don't know how long, and forming alliances with Iran and Iraq. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll tell you one thing, I don't feel easy. And I hear the Lord telling me to prepare. And last May, when we were praying, and even before that, I don't know, for a year before that, I was hearing prophets saying this, and I was sensing this. Watch Israel in October, in the fall of 2023. Something was going to happen. Watch Israel. And it doesn't just affect Israel. It is affecting all of us, and it's going to continue to affect all of us, not just the economy. I have a sense that there might be more terrorist attacks in our country and also in Western Europe, like it was in 2014 with Paris, France, and England, things that happened in other countries as well as our country. 9/11 for us. I have a sense that there might be more. And I think of Betty Davis when I look at this. Some of these old movies, some of these lines just kind of resonate inside me. And I just hear her saying, I can just see her, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. And I know in the future, it already is starting to happen. It is a bumpy ride that we're seeing, but we're seeing Revelation 12 unfolding right now. But also it's an exciting time. When I heard how the Hamas had killed so many young children and babies, old people and families, families that were together. Like I saw the Hamas trying to completely destroy the seed, which is Israel, that their genetic seed, and the enemy is trying to do that, to destroy the seed of Israel. And that happened, of course, before with Moses. All the babies thrown into the Nile River in order to prevent Moses from being born. And again in Bethlehem, when all of the baby boys were massacred 2 and under in order to kill our Savior and our Messiah. So I see the Bible unfolding. It's powerful what's happening. It's one of the most exciting of times, even though it's kind of like the horrific of times. It's like watching a scary movie, but you're the character. We're all the characters in the scary movie. And to fasten our seatbelts. We're in for a bumpy ride. And the best thing you can do is get on your knees and start praying. That's the best place to be. May the Lord richly bless you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance towards you. And may the Lord give you his fullness, the vastness, and the completeness of his shalom peace. God bless you.